little melancholy, but not bad at all. I think I could listen to that for a while. I just had a little note that popped up on the screen. My good friend Mary Hulsaw in Victoria had sent me a little note. We have mutual friends. I've known her for a long time. I shouldn't say that because, she's only got 35. No, she's a little older than that. We've never known one another for a long time, and we are fond of one another and adversaries. So we are always having a go at one another, one way or another. And I suppose that's going to be what it'll be like for the rest of our lives. But one of the things that she has done. And she has been an activist, and they are following in our path to some extent and trying hard to get various media going to keep an eye on their city council. Victoria, beautiful though it is, has managed to be daft enough to put in place people who really don't seem to know what they're doing and who are exacerbating all sorts of bad things in the community, to the point where the provincial government has had to slap their fingers and say, hey, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. That's how effective they are. But luckily, Mary and her crew, who actually did try to mount an opposition at the polls, and unfortunately failed, but they are now providing a watchdog system we are providing to make sure that there are some people helping control the excesses of councils. And so Mary is doing that. But the reason that I'm mentioning that is in the next 10 days or so, we hope to introduce two things. At the moment, most of the rants on Mirador television are me. I'm a seasoned ranter. I've been doing it for 30 years. I think I did my first phone-in program in which I ranted and raved in Vancouver, and that would be about 1970. So that's a few years ago. And then I introduced the whole thing into the United Kingdom, and boy, the audiences loved it. But the establishment, who were in charge of radio at that time, First Independent Radio, they couldn't believe that anybody would be stirring up debate the way they did, and they weren't very happy at all. And so in some ways, it died a bit of a death. There was a chap around at that time called George Gale who kept on for a little while. But then we went back to the old BBC stuff, which was their phone-in was all about gardening and photography and so on and so forth. All worthy stuff, nobody listening. But anyway, here we are back doing the same thing from Lewis and able to shout and yell. But it shouldn't just be Keith shouting and yelling. We should have diverse opinions. Now, I try hard to look at the various Facebook groups and so on and see what the feeling is. For instance, I was a bit like a number of people upset about the idea of building a super highway between Lewis and Eastbourne. I thought that was probably a very popular a point to take. But when I did a straw poll out of about 200 people who responded one way or another, it was 50-50. There were as many for it as against it. And so I was only too happy to say in this particular case, shut your bloody mouth, Keith. You know, this isn't something that is reflected in the community. So we are able to even put a curb on me. But the way to get diverse opinions, of course, is to have people doing similar things. So we do have somebody in the wings waiting to do something out of Tunbridge Wells. We have somebody who is waiting to do something out of Gatwick. From time to time, there are people in Seaford and Newhaven who flirt with the idea and then find that when they're exposed to public view is they don't like the trolls very much. Well, unfortunately, in this game, you just have to put up with the trolls. They'll have a go at you, and that's it. And some of them aren't very polite, I may say. It is, as Bill Nighy says in Love Actually, they weren't very nice to me. So we hope that we're going to have some more correspondence, but also now that the internet, in many ways, develops very quickly, and some of the youngsters who get into basements and develop things, and they come up, and all they do is they manage to well, not screw it up, but they manage to complicate things where things are simple. But they do come up with some good things, and there are 3 or 4 apps now where you can speak to people and interview them, and then put them onto either radio or television, the sort that we actually operate on the web. And I'm busy building my network now from overseas as well, so that we can get a view from Victoria in British Columbia, from Pristina in the Balkans, from New York, and so on, and from Armenia with Star Jackson. And this will bring to us, in a local context, the thinking that's going on in the rest of the world. And I think that is helpful for anybody to be able to put our problems into context with the rest of the world, because sometimes the things that upset us, other people don't understand. I mean, if I can give one example, which is very controversial, and that is this question of blacking up, whether the group of bonfire people who are Zulus should black up. I mean, that's been controversial for a couple of years. Now, I have worked extensively in Nigeria. I train Ghanaians. I know people from Kenya, and so on. And I raise this with them just to see how they feel about it, and they can't understand why we're getting so excited about it. They don't think that it's an issue. So there we are. We get excited about something that those people that we presumably those people who get upset about these things think they're protecting, as they could care less. So that's the sort of thing that we can put into context. And when we put it into context, you can bet your bottom dollar that those people who are against blacking up will come back with another argument, and so they should. And so we will listen, and so we will discuss, and we will debate. The only thing that I think that bothers me about public debate at the moment, particularly with the internet, is that quite often it's just one-sided. Is we are absolutely right and the rest go away. Well, that's not what democracy is about. It's not what human intellect is about. It is what the authoritarianism is about. We know and you don't. And that's perhaps one of the things that is a bit upsetting about this government and this band of jolly wallies, or whatever they are, in Parliament that we've got at the moment, who stand up and say, we mustn't listen to the public. They don't know what they're talking about. We're the people that have got the inside knowledge, and we know. Well, go and do a honest day's work, some of you, and then come back and say the same thing. Because the things that really bother us on the ground are quite often divorced totally from the things that people in Parliament get upset about. Oh, that was a nice rant, wasn't it? How much time have we got? Oh, 23. We could play another. I see one right here in front of me, Kiss the Sky. Let's go and kiss the sky. Yeah, that was rather nice, wasn't it? Rather pleasant. That takes us to 25 minutes past. Well, we've been on 25 minutes. It is now 6:31. So 1 minute past the witching hour. And we will cut ourselves a little bit short this morning because we were late, as we always are at the moment, getting going because we overrun on the television, and getting to the radio studio there are little bits and pieces you have to tap before you gain access to the internet, and that takes a little bit of time. We'll eventually, perhaps what we'll start doing is start at 20 to 6 and end at 5 to give us a chance to get to the radio studio properly and on time. So, this morning, what have we talked about? Be careful of the weather. Flooding, lots of rain expected in the west of the country, and it is moving east. No indication that we're going to get the worst of it the way that they are in the west, but nonetheless there's always a chance of a spillover, and I can see that looking through the studio window that there is a bit of a breeze, so it could be blowing everything our way. Bombs. We are Gatwick had a bomb sent to it yesterday. It was a letter bomb. Heathrow, the same, and Waterloo Station. Hopefully it's not the start of a campaign, but since Ireland has become very much part of the Brexit talks, one hopes that it's not going to see violence in either the Brexit scene or, for that matter, a return to violence in Ireland. If you can hear something going blah, 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 blah in the background, that's a fridge which talks to me quite regularly, and what it's saying at the moment is, get off, Keith, they've had enough of you, time to go. Just a couple of other things is that Facebook offered 6 million quid a couple of months ago to start local reporting of councils and so on and so forth, and I don't know where, but it would appear that is about to kick in. So good for Facebook, and we say welcome to our little team, because even though we don't really talk to one another very much, the people that run the groups, Lewis, I and ourselves have formed into, and may I say, Town and County magazine, have formed into a bit of an uneasy coalition, if you like, to keep an eye on what's going on locally, and I hope that we can continue to do that. And there is a threat that the cash system in Britain is going to collapse, is the word that is used, because banks are pulling out their ATMs and their branches from the smaller communities. So as a consequence, people can't get hold of cash. And one of the things about the banks is that they've given way to computers. Everything is so computerized now, it's farcical. So there's another revision and another look that we have to take. But if the cash system folds, then the country will be in trouble. And who is to blame? I guess it's our favourite people, the bankers. Knife crime in London Nottingham is the latest one to rise to the top of the league table. It's spreading across the country. There is some indication, not necessarily for knife crime, but an increase in rough crime hitting the southeast. So those are the few things that we talked about this morning. It is now 29 minutes we've been on the air. It is 6:35. Now it's time for us to say cheerio and toodle pip, and we will go out with our usual bend sound, endless motion.